Alright, looks like we're going to work on the final part, so now we need to click Spawn, open the designator, and I'm not going to lie, some of this coding with this part might not be the best way to do it, but it will work. So just a heads up, so if you say this doesn't look very optimized or it could be better, you're probably right. Yeah, so let's get started and we'll get this going. So the first things we're going to do is we're going to create 3 Boolean values. Oh, don't mind my phone dinging at me. We want being used. We want can be used. And trace hit. And quickly going to double check something. Okay, I was sure. You want this. Oops, we got to compile. For can be used, the default value needs to be true. Otherwise, it will not work. Next, we will create another one called tolerance. And we're going to make it a float. And this will later on just be how far away can you aim from where the laser hit before you'll have to reset your timer. So that we have to kind of keep aiming at the same target. The next ones will be cooldown, warm up, and range. And then we'll need a vector named last hit location. And then I'm just double checking. I'm pretty sure it's an actor. There we go. Oops. Yep, we just need to type this owning actor. And this just makes it a little easier to pull from later without having to type get owner over and over again. And then we will put a variable. And we'll name this mortar spawn type. And we're going to click here. Mortar spawn, make it a class reference. And you should be good to go on variables. Now I just got to set the defaults. For tolerance, I think I did 200 to start. Cooldown we'll do 1 second. This is after you use it, how long you have to wait for it to come back. For the sake of this, I'm just going to make it a second. Warm up, I'll make 2 seconds so you can see it working effectively. Range, you might need to make this number higher, but for in here this works. 50,000. That's just how far your traces are going to go. And then these you don't set anything in here. So I guess we're already moving on to the coding side of this. We don't need this. We do need these two. So immediately you're going to say get owner. And look for that. Click there. And then hold Alt and bring in owning actor and connect that to begin play. And then connect these together. And that'll just set that variable. I mean, we already have an owner, so this is a little redundant. It just makes it a little easier just to pull the variable in and do it. When looking for like locations and such later. I actually don't know if this is 100% necessary. This is probably something I coded at 3 in the morning. Now we'll make 2 custom events. One is use equipment. And then we need another custom event, and we're going to call it equipment function. So immediately from use equipment, we're going to put a branch, and we're going to connect can be used. So if it can be used, we're going to do this, and we're going to bring 2 of these in. You also can copy paste from here, depending on what you want to do. Connect each of these, and then check the top one. So if it can be used, whenever this comes in, it's going to set it to being used. Otherwise, it's going to say it's not being used. This probably isn't as necessary, but it's like a fail-safe. So if something gets stuck, it will. I have a lot of kind of fail-safes in here that I might not necessarily need. But it's better than it bugging out. I'll put it that way until I can make sure it all works correctly. So from equipment function, we're just going to put print string. This is excellent for debugging. You should get really familiar with this function if you use Unreal or any programming. We're going to put equipment worked. And then we're just going to use that just to see before we have the spawning the mortars in, like the whole strike. We'll just use that to see if it's working. We're gonna set all three of these Boolean values to false. Once this is called, then from here you'll create a delay and hook up cooldown to that. And then once this is finished, you'll put can be used and set it to true. And we'll compile and save. We're going to move this. This is our event tick. So every time the game updates it's going to be called. You can alternate, if this is causing you to lag, you can go to self up here, and we can set the tick function. And this will just change how often it's going to update. But for now, I'm just going to do it every update. It works fine on my computer, but some people may have problems. So the first thing from here, we're going to type branch. Once again, we're going to, well, not once again, I guess, we're going to use being used. We're going to connect this. And then from there, we'll drag from true. We'll set line trace by channel. Oops, I don't want set, sorry. Line trace by channel. And you don't want multi, you just want the standard. Okay, and then you want to right click and type get player camera manager and press enter. It should be this. Drag from there and type get camera location. Click that again, and from there this will be the start of your trace. This is a bit difficult to explain. Basically it's just, well actually I guess it's not, you're just drawing a line between two places with this, and then if it hits something it'll tell you more about how it hit. Alright, so from here type get transform, oops, and you're looking for get transform component, click that, and drag from here and type get forward vector. And then from get forward vector, you're going to drag from there and type times float, and you'll get vector times float. That's what you want. And you want to hold control and bring range in, and hook that up to there. And then drag from this vector, and this is kind of exhausting, I know, type plus vector. And these don't have to be plugged in any order, this is just for readability. Plug that into end, and plug get camera location into this. And now it should work. I'm also going to move this down so it's a little more clear. Oh, and we're gonna on draw debug type, we're gonna say for duration, and we're just gonna make this like 2 seconds, and that just lets you see kind of what's going on. And once we know it's working, I'm gonna make it per frame. Otherwise it ends up cluttering your screen. So we're going to drag from out hit. We're going to type break. And we get break hit result. And then we will drag from here and we'll put another branch. And what you want to do next is plug this. If there was a hit, plug that into the branch. And then if true, we're going to make another branch. I used to have this as an AND, but I don't think it does exactly what I want when I do that. So we're going to make the other branch, and then from location you're going to drag from here and type distance. And you're looking for this top one. It says distance between 2 points, and it should be distance vector. Click that. Should return a float value. And then we're going to hold control and bring in last hit location and plug that into the other one. Next, drag from this value and put a less than symbol. Click float, it's less than float. And then bring in tolerance and put that down here. And then connect this to the branch. And let me double check what's coming up next. There we go. So this is all true. Yeah, you hold Alt and bring that in, just in case I forget. Connect that to true. We're going to click trace hit is true. And if this one is false, we're going to Alt on Alt, click set hit last hit location to the location it hit. So we're going to connect the location to this. And we're also going to set the trace hit to false. Also, from here on this one, if this hits false, we are going to connect this to trace hit and connect that to false. There is a print string here. We actually don't need it because I was using it for debug, but make another branch. And then we're going to connect trace hit to this branch, and both of these will plug into the branch. If true, it does nothing, which is perfect. And if false, well, we gotta wait a second. We have to plug this in because I don't have the second part set up. So now we're going to move over here to the false branch, and we're going to drag and create a retriggerable delay, and we're going to connect warm up to that. So it's kind of weird to explain the logic, but basically the way retriggerable delay is whenever it's called, it's just going to keep resetting it, and as soon as it's not called, it's going to start a countdown. So if the trace doesn't hit, we want it to also connect to the delay and keep the mortar from firing, and it'll keep it reset. It'll all keep going through, and if it's not being used, it also connects into here and tells it don't launch the mortar either. And then last but not least, you drag from here and put equipment function, and we'll compile and save. I'm just double checking I got this right. Looks right, so if we run into an error, then I didn't, obviously. Great, so now we can move on to putting this on the character, and we can test it. Because otherwise you might be thinking, well, good, I have this actor, but now what do I do with this to get it to work? So now we're going to the first-person character. What I did is from begin play. If you have a third-person character, it'd be in here too. There should be a sequence. I connected the normal, what it wants to do first, in here. You can create a sequence by typing sequence, like that, and then plugging it in similarly. But I'm going to delete this because I already got one. Also, I probably should have talked about these a little earlier. If you want something like a reroute node, just to make it easier to control your little wires, you can double-click anywhere on a node, and then there we go. You can move it around, but I also don't need that. Plug that into there. So we're going to need two extra variables on your character class. That's an actor. So we make one called designator class. To find what type of actor you want, you just type actor, and that should be a class reference here, similar to what we did with our mortars. And then designator reference. This is actually the wrong type for me, so I'm going to have to get to, so I'll get to show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to delete these out. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete all of that. Alright, so then to set this, we're going to click here. We're going to type designator, and it'll make it an object reference. Click OK, compile and save. Then from here, you'll drag from the return value and type, it won't be a caster, type designator, and it should be cast to designator. So this is just performing a dynamic cast. Not always a great idea, but it works here. Plug this into here to set it as a reference. If it fails, I put a print string that says something's wrong, just let me know. And then I also have attached to actor, which you can find right here. Then it should be target as actor, and we'll plug the target here. I didn't actually need this, but if you were going to have it like in your character's hand, you need a socket. I set all these scale rules. You need to play with this a little bit more, but basically you'd create a socket and have your character hold it that way for an attachment. For what we're doing right now, you don't need it, but just good to know in the future. So from here, we also need to hold right-click, bring it in, drag from here, and then type use equipment. Oh, I gotta cover this. I forgot about that. And then we're also going to do being used and set that to false. To get this little right mouse button node, you just right-click and type right mouse button. You also can make input events in the settings. That's kind of a whole other thing. this will work for now. Take this and plug this here. On release, tell it it's not being used. Compile and save. Now it should work. It won't spawn any mortars. I'm going to delete the mortar spawn out of my level, but it should tell me that it's working. So we're going to hold right click. I must be getting an error. So for whatever reason, it's not creating it. Oh, I know what it is. Under designator class, we have the wrong thing. I forgot to set this to. Make sure you set this to designator. And then click compile, click save. And now it should work for real. There we go, we're getting a trace. I'm gonna hold it still, should say equipment worked, there it goes. It takes about 2 seconds. So see, as I move it, it won't work. Unless it's within a certain area, like that will work. Equipment worked. See how it stops, then I gotta click again whenever it's ready. And you may notice it's not on the crosshairs, that's actually just because the default crosshairs aren't in the center of the screen. That's not an issue with the trace. Let's see. So now we got to finish it up and make your actual strike work. So we have equipment worked here. Take these in your designator, move these over in this delay. Let's give myself a little more space. Okay. So from right here, we're going to drag. Let's say spawn actor from class. Click there. Bring in your mortar spawn type, hook that up, always spawn, make transform, and then also from here we're going to drag and type class defaults, and you should get class defaults. Click that, and now we're going to use our spawn height. So in not scale, from location, type make vector. And we're going to right click from last hit location and break vector. We also alternatively could have maybe done something a little different, I'm not sure. Because otherwise this looks really clumsy and weird, but it does work. So on X and Y, we're going to click and just plug them right into the make vector. From the Z, we're going to drag off and click plus and look for float plus float. Click that. I'm going to move this to the bottom so it's a little easier to see. Now plug spawn height into float plus float and drag that into the Z. And now this should spawn our mortars in wherever you want them. So here we go. I feel like a fool. I did the exact same thing I did in the other one. This is none, so always remember to set this to what you want. Just a good lesson anyway, so I'm kind of glad that happened. There we go. There we go. Now another thing you can do, let's say I play with this. Now all of the stuff that I showed you earlier is going to make a bit more sense too with the variables. So what you can do is, let's say, hey, I have this mortar here that I want to make another type of. You can right click on it and it says create child blueprint class. You can click that and let's make a big mortar, or we'll call it mortar big so it's easier to see them together. Usually I think it's a good idea. So double click on it and you're like, cool, actually wait, why is that on that side? Okay, drag this onto here. Alright. You probably won't have that issue, by the way. We'll set the damage higher, for instance, like we're going to make a game. We're going to set the speed to 500. And the explosion size will make 10. We also are going to click the mortar body. And we're going to put wide capsule. Now it's this kind of fat wide capsule on it. The bad news is because this is the root, if we make this any bigger here, it will make the extent bigger, but you can do a little math to fix that. Under your explosion, so what you can do here is change this to 400. If you want it to be a little bit bigger in explosions, basically times 2. So we have an 800, the original was 500. And what you can do now is go to your mortar spawn. We can create another one. I'm just going to click this. We're going to type mortar and put mortar big. Compile and save. Compile and save. And when we bring this in, next time we do mortar strike, it will spawn in different kinds of mortars. And you'll notice that they're still moving pretty quick, and that is because of the gravity on the projectile movement. So what we're going to do is click this, turn that to, let's do like 0.2. So it accelerates a bit, but it doesn't have that, not as quick. It still moves more slowly. We're going to move that here. Moving nice and slow. I mean, you might not want them that way. So there. That's how you do your mortar strike. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm not used to doing these kinds of videos, but yeah, hope it was helpful. See you later.